Hello again, friends, and you are my friends. And welcome to the next edition of the Chit Show. No, I can't say that. Yeah, don't want to get blacklisted by YouTube. Anyway, over the course of some of the advent of some of you, all my 35 subscribers, might be wondering, well, okay, sometimes he throws out some decent content, sometimes he doesn't. So what we're going to do is, people want to know what I do here. Well, I'm the boat guy around here. And we're going to, I know that I can't remember what last video was I put up, probably something about my Trans Am working in the winter, what I do in the winter. Anyway, the calls are coming already, even though I'm not supposed to be open till April 1st. Legally, I shouldn't be. Just, you know what? Shh. But these are customers from the past that need some work done. So I said, go ahead and bring it down. You know, it's warming up. I ran out of wood for the winter, so that was one reason why I wasn't down here all winter long. The others are obvious. But anyway, let's get into it. Today's victim is a 9.9 Johnson 2-stroke. And what we're going to do today is we're going to try to do a step-by-step. We're going to see how this rolls, because either I'm going to be successful at this or I'm going to fail miserably and fall flat on my ass. So, all shitty video editing aside, let's see how this is going to work. But I'm going to take you through a step-by-step guide of how to remove the lower unit on one of those motors. And those motors actually were from 1974 on up to when they quit making the 2-strokes. Genuinely, they were pretty much identical. There were some minor changes over the years. There was vast changes in would have been the early mid-90s. We're talking, they went with a little bit bigger cubic inch block. Some things were different. Some parts interchanged, some did not. But the general consensus on the way the lower units drop is identical. They ran essentially the same lower gear case from 1974 until they quit making 9.9 in a 2-stroke, 4-stroke stuff. The 4-stroke stuff is a little bit different as far as getting them apart. But I don't have one here, so we're going to be subjected to the 2-stroke stuff today. So, without further ado, some of the tools you will need are genuinely just a flat blade screwdriver, 1/4-inch socket set, and a 3/8 combination wrench. And you can pull the lower unit off this thing. We're going to get into resealing the gear case on this and doing a water pump job to it. So you're going to have to be patient and stay tuned, because this is a foray into a tutorial that I've not done yet. So you just seen snippets here and there, but we're going to do a step-by-stepper today and hopefully get the thing together and splice the sections together and make something that represents a tutorial video. Maybe that'll knock my subscribers up. Maybe it won't. Maybe people think I'm a freaking blooming idiot, but whatever. Regardless, welcome to the asylum, and let's get into it. Okay, so we're rolling again. What you will need for this, there are 6 3/8 headed bolts. They're, I believe they're quarters. That you have to remove to lower this gear case from the exhaust housing. So well, kind of hard to do this one-handed. So yeah, pause and we'll be back and we'll show you the next step. Once you have those bolts taken out of the lower gear case, it attaches the lower to the exhaust housing. This is a short shaft motor. It's 15 inch. Now on the 20s there will be an extension housing here, so there'll be another row of 6 bolts and an extension and then your lower unit. You do have to take all 6, well, it'd be 12 bolts out totally on the lower unit. You have one here, one here, one here. You'd have one here, one here, one here. Actually, let me go. I have an extension piece. I will show you what that looks like. The reasons being is that if you're doing a water pump job anyway, you're going to have to take it off because of where the water pump, oh good, drop it, where the water pump sits. So if this was a long shaft motor, which it's not, but you would have an extension housing and then your lower unit would bolt to the lower portion of that extension housing, if that makes any sense. So there would be a total of 12 bolts here, 6 up to the exhaust housing, and then there's 6 more on the bottom side of that, and you have to remove that to get to the water pump and to get the shift link apart, because your shift link is right there and it still resides in the same spot on the lower unit. So you do have to take this apart from the lower unit to get to the shift link and then to get the water pump out. It's just easier to take the whole damn thing out rather than monkey around with it. So we're gonna take a pause here. I will, well, no, we're not. We're gonna get that shift link apart. I'll show you how much fun that is. But what you will need for that, you'll need a short extension, your 3/8 ratchet, or I'm sorry, your 1/4 inch drive by 3/8 inch socket, and don't mind the crappy camera work. I'm in here doing this by myself, so if you can see right there, that's your shift link. What it is a little brass block. It's got 2 1/4 driven into it, and you can see the shaft actually above the block here. That's your shift link from your shifter mechanism up there, or the earlier ones were on the side of the motor, but that links the lower unit to the shift link. So what you have to do is you have to go in there with your 3/8 and remove that. Now we're going to see if I can do this without one-handed without dropping the damn lower unit on the ground or losing the bolt. And we have success. So now the next step in the evolution is lower the gear case. There, now you've got your lower unit off, and took all of about 5 minutes. So, and we got something leaking on the ground here. I don't know what that's about. It's combustion oil, so that's not what I got hired to do. I'm gonna have to talk to him about that, but sell him some good AMSOIL products. But I got hired to open that up and put a water pump in it. So we're going to go from there. And take a pause. We're going to mount the thing in the vise, drain it, and we'll show you how to do that here in a second. So hang tight. The next step is, if you're looking at the lower gear case, you've got a drain screw here and a vent screw here. This will be on the port side of the motor, the lower unit. Now the customer did inform me that he drained the lower gear case. I think he thinks he has a lower unit leak, which you can see it's leaching combustion oil on the ground, and there's evidence of that up here. But one thing that's invaluable, and it's kind of Spartan to say it, but I tell people this anyway, and they either laugh it off and remember it or they don't. If you have, oil on the ground underneath the motor when it's sitting in your garage and you suspect that it's a gear lube leak, one of the first things you do, which I'd already done this previously, but we're going to take it off anyway, because you have to do the next step. But one of the things that you need to do is take a look, pull your spacer off, and see if you've got any kind of fishing line or something wrapped up around the prop shaft. Because these fishermen get in close and tight to the shoreline, and how many times have you seen lures hanging from the tree, fishing line laying around somewhere, and then you troll past it and you wind that up in your prop shaft, and that will eat those well, it won't eat them, it will get under both prop shafts, and then you'll have a leak. 9 times out of 10, when I get one in and somebody's complaining of a gear case leak and they're sure of it, which I'll get to that here in a moment, that's the first thing I do. Pull the prop. Pull your thrust washers and all that off, and make sure you ain't got a wad of fishing line behind it. Okay, because if you do, then you know you got to reseal it. Like I said, I'm not so sure this one's leaking. He did tell me that he drained the gear lube out of it. I am seeing signs that there might be water in there, but we're going to get to the next step in this evolution here too, because we're going to pressure and vacuum test that, and I'm going to show you how we do that. It does take some special tools to do that. But back to the beginning, if you're thinking you've got a gear case leak and there's oil on the floor, some kind of oily substance on the floor, stick your finger in it, stick it up to your nose like you just seen me do. If it smells burnt, it's combustion oil. Okay, if it smells like a sack full of farts, it's gear lube. Okay, so keep that in mind, and on to the next step. We're going to get the specialized equipment out and do a pressure and vacuum test on this. Stay tuned. Okay, the next step, we have 2 testers here. They look identical. Okay, but if you look here, these are Stevens Instruments Company. These are very old but very good units. Model S34, this is your pressure tester. This is what you generally put in first if you're evaluating a lower unit. If you want to see if it's a leaker or not, you drain the gear lube, you put your top screw back in, your vent screw. You thread that guy back in there. You tighten it up, and then you thread this into the lower portion here. We're going to see if we can't do this here. It's probably not going to work. So people are just going to have to bear with me. But give me a second. Yeah, the next step. This screw is in tight. You feed it from the bottom. Honestly, if it's drained, you can go from this hole or this hole. I generally like to do it from here. If there's any residual that's in the bottom, the pressure tester is going to push that out of the way. The reason you drain these is because you don't
You don't want any extra fluid in there and pump it up to pressure, because that's a perfect way to blow the seals out. Okay? And just drain it. You're trying to get all the lubricant out of it, so you're ensuring that the seals are doing their job. So now the next step, we're gonna mind the shitty camera work. We're gonna take this and pump it up to 10 pounds. And sit here and watch the gauge. Now, one other thing you can do, see, my gauge is a little bit off, but one thing you can do is grab some soapy water, spray it down in there, around the shift shaft, around the prop shaft, and give it some more gumption here with the pressure tester. We're up to about 7 pounds. I already know it's got a leak. As you can see, the needle is slowly backing off. Now, the purpose of the soapy water is so that hopefully you can see where it's coming from. But it's not coming out of the prop shaft, or it'd be blowing bubbles everywhere. Wish the lighting was a little bit better in here, but we got what we got. Maybe you can see down in there now. There's no bubbling coming out from around the shift shaft. We know that's good, thank God. I would assume that without pulling the water pump housing, we got no excessive bubbling coming from around there, that we got a drive shaft seal bad. And go look at the pressure gauge again, we lost another 2 pounds. So we know we got a leaker, but I told you the vacuum test, so we're going to test that. Now, you can tell which seal is particularly leaking from a vacuum or a pressure test, because these gear cases, when we're talking prop shaft seals, you look at it, there's 2 seals there. There's one that seals oil in and one that seals water out. They're back to back, and under the water pump, same thing. Okay? So, with the advent of the pressure and vacuum test, you can pretty much guarantee which seal is bad, if you got a leaker or not. If it's pressure, it's going to be blowing gear oil out. But if you always got a water problem, then you probably got, one of your outer seals has failed. So we got an inner seal that's obviously failed due to the pressure test failing. So we'll see if it'll hold water. I doubt it will, because I think the last person that had their hands in it didn't do this job completely, but we'll cross that bridge later on. But take a pause for a moment. We'll be right back. Our Model V34 Stevens Instrument Company vacuum tester, which you can do the same thing with like one of those Mighty Vac things, but it will not produce pressure. So you do have to have some means of putting pressure in it. I used to regulate my air compressor to like 5 to 7 pounds and thread an insert in and then just hook it up to direct air. But that doesn't really tell you if it's leaking any at all. What you do with these is you pump them up or pull vacuum on them and you walk away from them. Now, the pressure test you seen before, it failed immediately. But we're going to do the vacuum here, and we're going to see what we got. So we're holding pretty true at 10 pounds of vacuum, or I'm sorry, 10 inches of vacuum. And now what we're going to do is we're going to walk away from this, because this is the part of the procedure. So I will see you people in about 15 minutes. We're going to, in betwixt waiting for the 15 minutes of video time to go by in a couple minutes, I made a rough illustration here to kind of show you how the seals in these lower gear cases work, okay? Don't mind the crappy artwork. I don't get paid to be a freaking artist. So here we go. As you can see, this would be a shaft, whether it be drive shaft, prop shaft, what have you. This is your seal. Seal here, seal here. Okay, this squiggly line here is a spring on both of those that keep the lip of that seal tight against the shaft. A lot of times what I'll see, you have one seal sealing water out, one seal sealing oil in. Now, what I'll see a lot of times is if we get water infiltration, that this spring will have either rotted away to nothing or is missing, what have you. Some of the older ones didn't even have those. But that tensioner, basically, let's call it, will be gone. And that will let water come in past this seal, and then it gets in behind this seal and comes in. And then you have a water problem. Now, on the oil side of things, generally speaking, they will wear, okay, if it's got dirty gear oil in it, keep in mind that this seal, hypothetically, it is not supposed to physically touch that shaft. There is the very thin film of oil that lubricates this seal against the shaft. I've left that line in there as a kind of an illustrative purpose to kind of show you. So at this point here, if that seal is failing, or if it's just wore out, if it's old, if you had dirty gear oil in it, if it had dirty gear oil in it, then you know what, damn you for not keeping up on your maintenance. But the dirt and the grime and the metal shavings and stuff will get in here, and it will wear into this shaft on either side. If you're running it in salt and brackish water a lot, that's all got solids in it that can affect the sealing surface here on the shaft and tear that seal up on either end of things. So it's vitally important when you're, if you're running in muddy water. And the biggest thing I tell people to do, goes for water pumps too, because I've had people say, "What? I just replaced a water pump 6 months ago, and now I'm doing it again." Well, yeah, and you're running it in like a body of water that is generally muddy. It don't see much clear. It's not gin clear. It's, even in the midst of summer, if you're out in the middle of a lake, take a mason jar with you and dip it in a lake and cap it off and leave it sit. And after a day or two, look and see what's in the bottom of that jar. You'll be surprised. There's always particulate floating in the water. So that affects sealing quality. The same can be said on the oil side of things. Drain your oil, look at it. Generally some of these, well, I know the Mercs do, they have a magnet in the bottom of them that you pull it, and if it looks fuzzy on the end of that magnet, then you got particulate. Either your gears are wearing in, it could be break-in stuff. You got to maintain these things. I know they're not used like a car, but you got to keep up with the maintenance on them. It's twofold important in a marine application. But anyway, that's the way this sealing thing works here. You've got one sealing oil in, one sealing water out. And if you're going to reseal these cases, you have to make sure that the cone portion of that seal always faces the liquid that you're trying to seal away. So your cone portion of your seal, this is your rubber, there's your spring, make sure that the cone portion faces the oil, the cone portion faces the water. Because if you reverse this and say your cone is facing this way, that's not sealing anything out. Water's going to get in there. And if you do it the other way, that just means oil's going to leach out. So you got to make sure they're installed the correct way. They're back to back. And that's it. So we're going to take a pause. We got about another 5 minutes to go, and we're going to check that vacuum test and see what we got there. I already know what the results are because I went over and looked at it. So I got one up on you. You're just going to have to wait. The results of the vacuum test, as you can see, never lost, an inch of mercury. So it's been sitting here for going on 20 minutes. So we know we don't have a water seal problem. We got an oil seal problem. And from the looks of some of the stuff that came out of this thing, that's still residual oil that was coming out of it and particulate. I don't think this thing had a whole lot of maintenance done to it. I mean, the motor's pretty sweet, but I don't think he drained his gear oil every year. Let's just say that. So, yeah. Anywho, the next step, we're going to open her up. Be back with you in a minute. Okay, the next step is remove these 4 bolts. I've already pre-loosened them just to alleviate some time and having me trying to shoot this stupid footage and hold on to the camera and work the tools at the same time. Now, one thing about these Johnson Evinrude 9915 horses, okay, when you pull this cup off, you can physically pop that drive shaft out of the case. So what you need to do, you need to have the 2-hand method. A hand here, and then another one grasping the water pump and pull it out. And work that thing up over the spline until you're sure you don't unseat this, because if you do unseat this, we're going to be tearing into it anyway, so I'm going to have to. But sometimes getting that drive shaft line back up and the splines of the pinion gear can be a son of a bitch. So we're going to attempt this. We'll see how well this works. And it ain't working worth a shit. A wise man once told me I should invest in a tripod. So anyway, hope you can see this. If you can't, you're boned. Hand up here, lift up on the impeller until that, or the water pump housing, until that seal and the impeller and everything slips right off. Now, what we do here, oh, that's not right. Okay, yeah, all those blades should be going the same direction, and they're not. So it's no wonder this thing wasn't pumping water properly. I have no answer for that because I didn't do it, but I got hired to go back through this because somebody, he had taken it to another business. I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but and had poor water pump performance, and he still had a leaker, so obviously he was onto something. And looking at this, all those blades should go in the same direction. You're looking at them, well, bolts out of there. you're looking at these things, you can see that one's going to, you know, this one's going the same way, this one's going the same way, that one's going the same way, that one's going the same way. But these two are, well, yeah, these two are reversed. Okay, the only way that happens, we're going to show you that here whenever we go to put this thing back together. A surefire way to make sure that does not happen. But I have no answer for that. That shouldn't. I would have thought the guy knew better than that before, but I digress. Yeah. On to the next step. So, hang with me. We're getting there. Okay, we have the drive shaft seals pulled out. And here's what I illustrated in that picture over there. If you look, you can see on the inner lip here, there's a spring. And you can see that, maybe you can't. And this is the twin to it. Okay, these go, when I say back to back, if you look, you can see how this is coming out to the shaft like a cone. So what these need to do, back to back, they get placed inside there and then installed. Now, what I do, which did not happen on the last go around anyway, is I use some OMC calls it Type M sealant. This is Super 300 Forma gasket, and what I do with that is I brush that on the outside of the seals and then drive them home. Okay, we're going to try to accomplish this. Results may vary, so you're just going to have to be patient. A wise man once told me to get a tripod. Don't know who that was. But anyway, pick the Super 300 out. Back to back. I like to do them one at a time because you try to do them two at a time and drive them both. Sometimes if they go in a little cockeyed, then you're going to run into problems. And they won't seat properly. So I do them one at a time. It's just a thing with me. So if you don't have the proper seal driver, like I don't, you can use a socket. Make sure the socket fits on actually the outer edge, the sealing side. Make sure it fits like that, so that way you can see that it's not, it lines precisely up with that. So when you drive this, you're driving it in flush, and drive it down until you feel resistance and it stops. You want to hit squarely. Hear the change in tone? Tap that all the way around till you're sure that that thing is seated properly. Should be down in there all the way. Take some more of your Type M sealant, or Super 300 if you don't want to invest in the Type M sealant. It's the same shit. But brush that on the edge like that, because these seals here are not rubber coated on the outer casing. Some are, some aren't. But the ones that are, you don't have to do this step. But the ones that aren't, you do. Okay? Get the seal seated in place. Make sure that it's going down into the boss evenly. Double check. If it was a perfect world, you could just hit your driver square in the middle and drive it right down in and it'd be even. Unfortunately, seals are kind of oblong. They're not perfectly circled like the machining in the case. So you do have to kind of work it around to get it down in there. And we got no more downward movement. So I know that thing is down in there and it's seated. And the other way you can check to be sure. Let me wipe this Type M off my seal driver. That'll go in the solvent tank, I do believe. The other way you can check to make sure that your seals are seated properly is take a look-see inside and make sure that the sealing lips are even all the way around the shaft. Okay, in this case they are, so we know we're seated properly. If they're not seated properly, you're going to get a leak. And we got a little chunk of crap down in there. We need to pull that up out. We don't want anything interfering with this. Now, the next step is reinstalling the drive shaft. So what I do, results may vary, is the shaft will drop down inside here. What I do is I lubricate this, the spline, and the initial surface. Oh wait, we forgot about this. Okay, I need to go over this with you. If you're looking right here, I don't know if you can see that. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. You see that groove? That's your bottom seal, your henceforth oil seal that wore a groove into this. It's stainless steel drive shaft. Okay, here's where your water pump resides. That's the driving boss for your water pump. But there is another light little groove right there that you can just make out. That's the water side. That's the oil side. So dirty oil will do that. It's going to tear things up. Okay, so New seals will fix this, but it's up to this guy to maintain this thing, because if he doesn't, if he brings it back the next time and the seals are tore up, I don't know why I tell him, but he did have a problem. So what we're going to do here, we're just going to polish this up and try to take care of that a little bit, because that's not good, and this certainly isn't. That'll tear your water pump housing seal up. We're going to get to that here in a minute too, so bear with me some more, folks. A wise man once told me to get a tripod. I don't know who that was. Anyway, what we're going to do, we lube the end of the shaft up, and you got to work it down through those seals without ripping them up. You get it through the first one, that's easy. The second one's even easier. And you got to make sure you line your splines up, the drive shaft. And we just got it. You can see it drop down. That one was easy. Okay, I've had them before where somebody's brought me a lower unit and they tried to replace the seals and they didn't do it right. They got frustrated, so they brought it to me. And they get that pinion gear slightly out of kilter, off whack or whatever, and then getting that drive shaft back in can be a son of a bitch. So it's all in disassembly, how easy you are with things when you're putting it back together. It's very easy to mess things up, but as long as you're thorough and you pay attention, shouldn't be that big of a deal. Now we're going to stop here. I'm going to grab the camera and we're going to show you the water pump. Ladies and gents, it's water pump time. Okay, we're going to rotate this so that way we can see that flat right there. Now, what you need to do, your water pump kit comes with a pin that locates the impeller to the shaft. So come over here to the grease gun. Give a little pump of marine grease on your finger. Just load that stuff on there. Okay. Now, pick that pin up. Locate that. On your impeller, you'll see it's got a groove all the way through it. Don't mind the train. I live here and it doesn't bother me. But what you want to do is line that pin up with that slot on the shaft. Okay. Wow, that's on there tight. Boy howdy. All right. So, just doing an instance like that, sometimes I just gotta work them down. Sometimes two hands are better than one. Get that slot lined up with the impeller with the pin. Sometimes what I'll do is take a screwdriver, make sure that pin is seated. Get that thing lined up perfectly. Slide it home. Now the next thing, another little pump of marine grease. Your housing comes in two parts. You got a cup and then you got the housing. Right? What I'll do, it's not vitally important you do this if you're gonna run it in a dunk tank or you're gonna take it right to the body of water. But I always always smear a little grease in there, work it around, get it in there, seat your cup. Now, where we remember the last impeller, we had blades going this way and blades going this way. What you do here is also vitally important, because if you don't do it the right way, you're going to have a problem like that. If you can see this lip right here, this outer lip, you can force that impeller housing down over top of the impeller and get the blades crooked. What's a boy to do? Well, what this boy does, we got to put the seal in the top of the water pump housing. I did forget about that. Bear with me. Do that the same as you do what you did in the last portion of the video with the drive shaft seals. What I do is I take a little bit of the marine grease, lubricate that lip inside. Okay. Then we take it, we work this down over the spline. You gotta be careful so you don't gouge that seal. Slide it down. When you get it to the impeller, grab your drive shaft, spin it in a clockwise direction as you're facing down on it. Okay? Keep downward pressure on the impeller housing. And I need a helper here because my hands are greasy. And that thing will drive itself right home, and you're gonna have your blades oriented the right way. Engines spin clockwise. Crankshaft, whenever it's running, they're spinning clockwise. This is always running in a clockwise motion. So when you fit this down over top, you should be turning this to make sure that those blades hook under that cup and you get a good seal. You get it seated properly, I should say. Got our new bolts, 7/16 or 1/4-20s. Thread those in. Go in a crisscross motion when you tighten these down. It's not that you're going to warp the housing, but you don't want to take that risk. And it's just good practice. And don't mind my dog upstairs raising hell. I got a bunch of mongrels next door, and he don't really care for them too much. In fact, he despises them. If he could take a big chomp out of them, he probably would. Anyway, when you get that snug down, go back to your first bolt. They have a torque spec on it, but nobody pays attention to that. Just grab it and give it a nice firm. You get good enough, you can kind of tell how tight you've got each one by feel. I know that's not right, but that's a water pump housing, okay? It's not the freaking, it's not brain surgery here, folks. So make sure that that's snugged up good and tight. Take your housing to your exhaust housing O-ring, insert that way, such as it were. And you've got this O-ring here. You slide that down. Then the most important part, the water pump grommet. This all comes new with a water pump kit. And we're going to give you a look-see here. the bolts housing O-ring for your exhaust housing. That O-ring, I'm not even actually sure what the hell that even does or what it's there for. Let's work it down in there. There's two nubs on this, and as you'll see, there's a hole here and a hole here. Those have to mate up, okay? Because if not, this water pump grommet will slip out of place. When you feel it seat, give it a tug to make sure that it's not coming up out. And what I also do with that, more Wiener sliding. Not a whole lot, just take a little bit. Lubricate that O-ring. Lubricate that O-ring. You just want to make it slick. You don't want to goop it in there. And then run your finger in there, get that stuff in there. That's going to help you in the long run whenever you go to reassemble this thing back to the thing, to the motor. And sometimes you can miss on getting that water tube that feeds the power head. It's cooling water. You can miss. And if you miss that thing, then you're not going to be pumping any water to the power head, and you're going to have an overheat problem. Okay, next step, the bearing carrier. The dreaded bearing carrier. Going to be back in a few minutes. Take a pause for the cause. Switch direction. I'll show you how I get this out. Next step, we pop these bolts out. We rotate this bearing carrier housing. What I do is I take a piece of wood and a hammer and knock that thing over just a little bit, and then come in from behind each of these tabs and knock it out. They make a bearing carrier tool that I have not invested in yet because I don't generally get into the bigger motors, and unless somebody brings me one. Generally my business is 9.9s, 15s, 25s, 35s. I get a couple 90s floating in here in Merc Cruisers. So I didn't have the need to invest in that, so this is kind of a hillbilly way to do it, but it does work. I've never had a problem doing it this way. So stay tuned here for a minute. We're going to pop this carrier out. A wise man once told me to invest in a tripod. Don't know who that was. Coming from behind it, my punch is kind of bent, so keeps the outward pressure away from marring up the gear case. A few smart wraps and you got it out. We're going to set that there for now. We're going to come back to that here in a moment, because I need to show you what's going on inside here and what you need to do at the next step. So, we popped that out, and this guy loves to troll. He was just here, actually. You can see all that crap that's all over that bearing carrier. Apparently he gets into some muddy crap and all that stuff. You got to be careful when you pull that out, you don't knock any of that shit back inside the gear case. So what I do in an instance like this, we're just going to pull that forward gear out. That's interesting. He's got a broken prop shaft. Wow. Okay. Well, I need to make a phone call. Wee. All right. Not good. I wasn't expecting to run into that. Yeah, you can see it's definitely broke right in half. Not good. Guy's not going to be none too happy about that. Oh boy, that's going to be expensive. Oh, you got another problem. And I don't have a spare one to fix it with. Wow. Okay. Well, this probably isn't going to get buttoned up today, but stay tuned. We'll get him running. Be right back, hopefully. I'm not sure exactly what happened here, because that is catastrophic failure. I never seen one busted clean like that. That's just unreal. Okay. Maybe you can see that seal. That's why he had a leaker. Oh boy. Not going to be a happy camper. So, I've never seen it busted. There's a spring and 2 detent bolts that go in there. You can see that's sheared completely off. Not entirely sure how that happened. But, stay tuned. Alright, so you guys obviously had seen that we incurred a little bit of a roadblock on this repair. Figures. The first friggin' one I decided to do a tutorial on winds up having more shit wrong with it than what I intended to do. Such is life. Roll with it or let it consume you, I guess. But yeah, I located the guy. He wanted to go with a new prop shaft, so I located him one, and we're gonna put that thing back together tomorrow, and go from there. Because right now, at this point in the game, it's well after 5. It's 20 after 6, and I shouldn't even be down here talking to you folks right now, because between placing phone calls, talking to vendors, I knew there was nothing that could be done but to get this motor going. I had drove about 35 miles north of here to pick up a prop shaft. Somebody had one on hand, luckily enough, and I purchased it, brought it back down here. But you know what? If you can read that, it's after 5 o'clock, and this old boy don't work after 5 o'clock on his days off. Right now, I should be rolling around on Harleys, and I'm not. So, but this place obviously isn't flooded with boats right now because it is still the infancy of the spring of the year. So, anyway, yeah. We're going to catch back up on this project tomorrow, and, you know, we'll somehow splice things together. And as you hear that, it'll take one, cut two, yeah, whatever. But, yeah. We're going to make shit happen. We're going to put a smile on that guy's face and go from there. So, that's all I got for you today. Enjoy it. Choice is yours. Today was a good day to enjoy it. My God, it turned into being sunny and 72 and not really many clouds in the sky. This is great, and I'm loving it. But this is my first customer of the year, and I want to make sure that he's done right. So I went the extra mile. Anybody else after this point, because I don't have stuff sitting around here right now lying in wait. I went the extra mile to do this. It unfortunately will be reflected on his bill, but
I got to do what I got to do. So there you go. Enjoy, have fun, and we'll finish this one up in the morning. Thank you. Much love to all. And as always, stay tuned. Okay, so the video went kind of sour when we discovered a broken prop shaft. But luckily enough, I was able to source another one. And way too much money, but whatever. It's not mine. So the guy wanted it fixed, and it is a sweet little motor. You don't see many of them that clean with gloss still on the paint. So, yeah, it's back together. Not leaking. Held vacuum, held pressure. So I did my job. Did what I was hired for. Next step is going to be sticking it in the test tank tomorrow and giving it a run. Also kind of important because the test tank that I got, I've yet to run an outboard into it. That was another winter project that was completed, and it's sitting out back of the shop. And that's what I'm going to run little portables in, or I haven't quite, figured out how I'm going to make a removable 5-inch extension for long shaft motors, i.e. 20-inch shaft motors. Something quick, something easy, so I ain't got to spend my time pissing around rigging it up to run a motor into it. But that'll be forthcoming, but I think maybe we'll take a video of that little Johnson running in the test tank tomorrow, and you guys will see whether I pass or fail to that, at least, the test tank option. So as always, stay tuned, or stay tuned up, because it's Friday. It's 8:45, and yeah, it's raining. Spring's here. Got another major one coming into the garage right off the bat. I knew that this little motor was a bad omen. But we got a Fisher pontoon coming back. It's what I lovingly refer to as the 2 up, 1 down boat, because genuinely to work on it, your 2 legs will be up in the air, and you're bracing yourself with 1 arm down on the motor or wherever the hell you need to work. And sometimes to work on it, you have to dismantle the ass end of the boat to get into the engine compartment and work comfortably. So that's forthcoming. We'll stay updated on that. Sorry that this one kind of went sidewards, and I guess so. I failed at providing a step-by-step video for you people, but you know what? There's going to be plenty more coming this summer, and you people are just going to have to wait. As always, stay tuned. Much love to all, and take care.